That pumpkin on your porch? It's more than a spooky face or a future pie. It's an ancient storyteller. Its hollow shell echoing thousands of years of ingenuity, migration and myth. That flickering grin is a beacon, a direct link connecting the harvest fields of the ancient Americas, the perilous ocean crossings of explorers, and the ghostly fires of Celtic tradition. It's a story that has been passed down not in words, but in seeds. Before you light the candle and set that grin aglow, let's trace its remarkable journey. We'll travel back 10 millennia, from a humble bitter gourd in the Americas to the cherished emblem of Halloween we know and love today. Our story begins not with the plump orange pumpkins of autumn, but with their wild ancestors, 10,000 years ago in the Americas. In the fertile regions of today's Mexico, particularly the Oaxaca Valley, indigenous communities became some of the world's first and most innovative farmers. They encountered the wild cucurbita pepper, a small, tough, and intensely bitter gourd. It was hardly an appealing source of food, but these early agriculturalists saw potential. Through a process of patient observation and careful selection that spanned thousands of years, they began to cultivate the plants that produce slightly larger, slightly less bitter fruit. Across countless seasons, they guided the plant's evolution, transforming it from a barely edible gourd into a diverse and vital family of squash. This wasn't an accident. It was a revolutionary act of co-creation between humans and nature. These domesticated squash were nutrition and utility in one. The flesh, now sweet and plentiful, could be roasted and boiled for sustenance, providing essential vitamins. The seeds were a powerhouse of protein and oils, often toasted or ground into meal. And the tough outer shell, when dried and hollowed, found a second life. It became an entire toolkit for daily existence: bowls for food, ladles for serving, and durable containers for storing precious water and seeds. Food, storage, tools, a quiet revolution in everyday life, all from a single plant. Long before European contact, the success of squash cultivation spread from its Mesoamerican heartland. Through sophisticated indigenous trade networks, these valuable seeds traveled north into what is now the American Southwest and Southeast, and south into the Andes. Squash became a cornerstone of agriculture, famously grown alongside maize and beans in the Three Sisters companion planting system. A sustainable model where the corn provided a stalk for the beans to climb, the beans fixed nitrogen in the soil, and the broad-leafed squash shaded the ground, preserving moisture and preventing weeds. For millennia, pumpkins and their kin remained a secret of the New World. Then came the late 15th and early 16th centuries. The arrival of European explorers initiated the vast and world-altering Columbian Exchange. Astonished by the agricultural abundance they encountered, they documented these strange, enormous fruits, which they called pompions, derived from the Greek word for a large melon. They carried the seeds back across the Atlantic, setting the stage for a new chapter in the pumpkin's global story. In Europe, the American gourd was a sensation. Easy to grow and generous in its yield, the pumpkin quickly took root in kitchen gardens and farms from England to Italy. It was a reliable food source, especially for the rural poor. Cooks adapted it to their own tastes, stewing it with spices, baking it into pies and tarts, and even working its sweet flesh into bread. Long before any whisper of ghosts and ghouls, the pumpkin became a beloved symbol of autumn's bounty and hearthside comfort. Yet the tradition of carving a lantern to greet the darkness began elsewhere, with a different plant, on a different continent, and for a far spookier purpose. Our story now crosses the ocean again to ancient Ireland. Here, the festival of Samhain marked the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter. It was a liminal time, a night when the veil between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits was said to thin, allowing ghosts and fairies to walk among mortals. To protect their homes and families from malevolent spirits, people carved grim, frightening faces into the humble vegetables they had on hand: turnips, potatoes, and large beets. They would place a hot coal or a small candle inside, creating a protective beacon to ward off any wandering evil. These were the original jack-o'-lanterns, and that is where our tale turns next, to a lonely figure named Jack, and how the Irish tradition of carving turnips would eventually meet the American pumpkin. The story of the jack-o'-lantern begins not with a pumpkin, but with a turnip, and a time when the veil between worlds was believed to be at its thinnest. At the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, communities gathered as the harvest ended and the dark half of the year began. This was a liminal time, a night when the spirits of the dead could walk the earth once more. To navigate this eerie landscape, people carved grotesque faces into root vegetables, primarily turnips but also potatoes and beets. These weren't mere decorations. Those carved faces, illuminated from within by a glowing ember, did more than frighten. They marked a threshold. Placed in windows or carried by hand, they served as a beacon to guide the friendly spirits of ancestors home for the night, and to ward off and confuse the more malevolent mischief-makers, the wandering souls and fey-folk with ill intent. And then came the story that sealed the custom in folklore, the cautionary tale of Stingy Jack. Jack, a blacksmith by trade and a notorious trickster by reputation, was known throughout the land for his sharp wit and miserly ways. One fateful night, he invited the devil himself for a drink. When the bill came, Jack, true to his nature, refused to pay, instead convincing the devil to turn into a coin to cover the cost. But the moment the transformation was complete, Jack slipped the coin into his pocket, right beside a silver cross, trapping the devil and rendering him powerless. He only released him after the devil promised not to claim Jack's soul for 10 years. A decade later, Jack encountered the devil again. This time, he lured the devil up an apple tree for a piece of fruit, and while he was distracted, Jack swiftly carved crosses all around the bark, trapping him once more. To secure his freedom, the devil had to make another promise, that he would never torment Jack in hell. But when Jack, after a long life of sin, finally died, his soul was deemed too impure for heaven. He was turned away at the pearly gates, and hell, bound by its bargain, could not take him either. The devil, annoyed but honor-bound, sent him off with only a burning coal from the fires of hell to light his way. To carry the eternal flame, Jack hollowed out his favorite food, a turnip, to cradle the ember, and was condemned to wander the night between worlds forever, becoming known as Jack of the Lantern. In the 19th century, as waves of Irish immigrants carried this powerful lore across the Atlantic to America, they brought the tradition of carving these protective lanterns with them. Here, they found the native North American pumpkin, larger, softer, and far more perfect for carving than a tough old turnip. By the late 1800s, popular newspapers and illustrated magazines had seized upon the novelty, spreading the look and the how-to of carving jack-o'-lanterns, and in just a few decades, the jack-o'-lantern leapt from regional folklore to American front porches. The 20th century then turned it into a celebrated art form, with neighborhood porch contests, intricate patterns sold in kits and celebrations at county fairs, which even featured giants grown specifically for competitive weigh-offs. Soon, the glow went global, its faces evolving from fearsome to funny, cute or artistic, with watermelons and papayas standing in for pumpkins in warmer climates, as traditions were remixed and adopted worldwide. And today, as we embrace sustainability, many give the story a gentler epilogue, ensuring the seeds are roasted instead of wasted, and the spent shells are composted back to the soil, returning their nutrients to the earth. From a ghost-warding turnip clutched in the hand of a damned soul to the grinning pumpkins on our doorsteps, an ancient myth met a new world and found its perfect canvas. And that is how the humble, haunted turnip gave way to today's iconic pumpkin carving tradition.